Welcome to This is Israel. I'm Warren Lewis. Our guest today is Selwyn Hare, and Selwyn is from Home in Israel, powered by Keller Williams. Today we're going to be talking about buying a home in Israel or buying a property in Israel as a foreign investor. So if you live in the States, if you live in South Africa, wherever it may be, if you're looking to buy a property in Israel, whether to move to Israel in the future or as an investment, that's the topic we're going to be covering today. Selwyn, welcome.
Thank you, Warren. Nice to be here.
Thanks, Selwyn. First of all, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, your history and experience in the property market in Israel?
Okay, fine. So, Home in Israel, we're a real estate company based in Netanya.
Okay.
We're about 20 agents. We've recently joined with Keller Williams, the biggest international company. We've joined up with Keller Williams, so we're Keller Williams Netanya, Home in Israel, powered by Keller Williams at the moment. So as I was saying, we have 20 agents that deal with the local market of Netanya. That's buyers, sellers, rentals, and over and above, we have actually specialized in dealing with foreign clients. We sell properties to foreign clients from around the world. We take part in a lot of the Aliyah shows also around the world, selling property to both people making investments or for security, personal security reasons, and investments and Aliyah, people who are making Aliyah.
Yes. And how long have you been in the industry?
Okay, so around about 18 years.
Okay, so you've been along, you had a lot of experience.
Yes, done a deal or two.
Great. So you're the perfect guy to talk to about this. So the big question is, first of all, I'm sitting in New York, in Johannesburg, wherever, in London, and now I decide I want to buy a property in Israel for whatever reason. I'm not an Israeli citizen. How easy is it as a non-citizen to buy a property in Israel?
All right. First of all, it is easy. I know I've heard a lot of stories, but I promise you now, it's very easy. And the simple reason is because we hold your hand from start to finish and after as well.
Okay.
So the whole thing about buying a property is, first of all, is to understand what's the reason for the property. Is it for making Aliyah? Is it as an investment? Is it a holiday home?
Yes.
Security? Or all of the above? It can be of all of them. So we've got to basically have a look and analyze and to see what are your actual needs. If it's all of the above. If it's an investment, yes. What are you looking for as far as an investment? Are you looking for yield or are you looking for capital growth?
Right.
So these are things that have to be looked at.
But legally as a foreigner, I can buy a property in Israel?
No problem whatsoever.
Okay.
Okay, so there's just one rule that says that, which is in Israel, where on government land, only a Jew can buy property on government land.
Okay.
So we know that Israel, that's the Keren Kayemet, the Minhal Mekalkei Israel, between 80%, probably 80% of the land in Israel is government land.
Okay.
So therefore, only a Jew can buy property. You're Jewish, you can buy anything that is government land.
So now I'm going to completely off topic, political hot potato. For the purposes of who's considered a Jew, and is that the same as is making Aliyah? Who's considered Jewish for making 100%. Aliyah, or are the?
If you can make Aliyah, okay. if you can make Aliyah, you consider there's no problem.
So it's the same. It's the same.
Right. It's a Jew. Who's a Jew?
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. So okay. So now I'm somewhere and I decide I contact you. I want to get a property. I'm allowed to do it.
Correct.
And I now want to go ahead. Whether it's I'm buying off plan or I'm buying resale. What is the difference if I decide to buy off plan or if I decide to buy retail if I'm sitting overseas?
All right. So first of all, so now we've got to understand what's the difference basically between buying a resale or buying off plan. So first of all, let's go with off plan. If you're buying off plan, and you're thinking of taking a mortgage, we've got to make sure that the terms of payment are going to suit you.
Yes.
Because if you're taking a bond, you're going to have to service that bond before you get a tenant, because you've got to make the full payment.
Right.
Yes, there are developments where we are able to do a 30-70, 30% at contract or 30%, and have 70% or let's say 60%
Yes.
a month before the end and 10% at the end. So you're actually only going to have to cover the bond for 1 month. In other words, you're going to have to service the bond from equity
Yes.
for 1 month.
Got you.
So that's something that needs to be taken into account.
So those payments come in like tranches. The payments are split like at time that you sign, compared to a certain point of development, compared to completion. So
what we would do then, and this is another reason why you would take a lawyer to represent you in even if it's a development in a purchasing from a development, because you would always want to have an option to bring payments sooner.
Yes.
Because what you have in a development, which you don't have in a normal thing, you have the building index.
Okay.
So the building index is something that is set by the government.
Got you.
And is scheduled at the moment around about 1% a year.
Okay.
Okay, but the whole idea of the building index is for the government to look after the developer, so that if the price of steel for any reason, or the price of cement, were to go through the roof,
yes,
so that the developer won't be in a situation where he's going to go mechula and not be able to complete the project.
Right.
So the building index is something that is to protect the builder, but it's government run. So in other words, the building index is only money that has not been paid.
Okay.
In other words, 2 million shekel apartment, if I've paid 200,000 shekels, my next payment is going to be 500,000 shekels plus the in-building index.
Got you.
Of the 200,000. So it's only money that's not paid.
Okay.
If you pay your full amount up front,
yes,
then there's no building index.
Got you. So it's better to pay earlier, perhaps, depending on.
Oh, so this is where it comes.
Yes.
If you're going to service a bond,
right,
is your bond going to be more than the building index?
Right. Right.
If your bond is less than the building index, well, then it's worthwhile paying the bond. But where we are at the moment, you've got a bond rates at the moment are somewhere around about 3.5%.
Okay.
As opposed to building index, which is about 1%.
Okay.
But because of that, you'll always leave yourself the option of making payments earlier. If all of a sudden we see that the building index is climbing, well, hang on a second, maybe it's worth let's take the bond so that the building index doesn't exceed the bond.
Got you.
So that's another thing. So another, you want to call it a disadvantage of buying off plan, is you have the building index.
Yes.
Okay. Another thing about the the buying off plan is depending at what stage you get into the project. If you get in right at the bottom,
yes,
well, obviously, as far as capital investment, you're at the top.
Yes.
You're going to get the biggest capital investment because you're buying at pre-sale, where pre-sale you're probably going to get between 5 and 8% discount on the price.
So it's better to buy before, even when we've spoken before, it's better to buy before it's even been submitted, the plans.
Absolutely.
It's a lot less expensive.
Absolutely. Plans have been submitted, but they haven't been officialized yet.
Okay.
Okay, because what happens, what is a pre-sale in actual fact?
Okay.
So pre-sale is when you're coming to a developer's now coming to build a block of flats, and he's putting up 50 apartments, and he wants a bank guarantee. Yes. He wants to do it through what we call the chok mecher, and that all his buyers will get a bank guarantee.
Yes.
So the bank, he's got to then submit what we call a zero report.
Okay.
Zero report, the bank wants to know what's the cost, what's the builder's cost of every apartment.
Okay.
So pre-sale is normally sold at the zero plus a little bit, because the developer can never ever be in a situation where he loses money.
Right.
So now the bank will see that 10 apartments approximately 10% have been sold.
Okay.
So you've had 5 apartments have been sold at the zero. The bank will now see, okay, this is really feasible. Let's go. We're happy to give him the bank guarantee.
Okay.
Automatically, then pre-sale finishes. Price goes up 8%.
Got you. So if you get in at the
when you get in at the pre-sale,
you get the
boom,
most value.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Capital appreciation, that's the way to go. If you're buying as an investment, so capital appreciation is great. If you're buying for yield, you've got to remember another thing, that yield in Israel on residential is not of the best.
Okay.
You're probably going to get 3%.
Okay.
Got to remember another thing. The more expensive the property, the lower the yield.
Okay.
If you've got an apartment for 7, 8, 900 million shekels, your yield is probably going to be somewhere around about 3.5, maybe even 4.
Okay.
On a 5, 6 million shekel, your yield's probably going to be 2.5.
Right. Okay.
That's just the law. It's around the world. Okay. So, but then again, even 2.5, 3, you're not really getting much more than that at the banks anyway.
Okay.
Okay. So, but it's solid. So you take your 2.5, 3 of your yield,
yes,
plus your capital gain, which is probably in Israel, we know, I'm going to be conservative now, purposely, between 3 and 5% a year. We've had much more. We've had 8, we've had 15, but let's call it between 3 and 5.
Okay.
3 and 5, you're looking at an 8% yield per annum.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. Okay. So your capital goes, the disadvantage again, if we take a look at it, it's going to come from capital.
Okay.
You've got to service the bond until you put in a tenant. Whereas, on the other hand, if you're buying a resale, you're coming to a resale. The disadvantage of a resale as an investor, what do we want as an investor? To pay the least amount as possible,
yes,
and to get the maximum rent.
of course.
Okay, that's going to give me my yield.
Yes.
But now, as a foreigner, you've got to be hands-on.
Okay.
All right. People say to me, "Find me a mitzvah." Okay, so I found you a mitzvah. Now let me just tell you something.
Just explain to people out there what a mitzvah is.
What the mitzvah is something that it's a bargain. Find me a bargain. Okay, so now if I find you a bargain,
yes,
you've got to be hands-on, because trust me, I've got a list as long as my arm of people looking for a bargain.
Right.
Okay. Now, as soon as you have 3 or 4 people interested in the same bargain,
yes,
it's no longer a bargain.
okay. It drives the price up.
Exactly, it's going to drive the price up.
Got you.
So, for you to want a bargain, you've got to be hands-on.
Okay.
What does it mean, hands-on? You've got to be liquid.
Got you.
You've got to be able to come and say, you've got to be able to shout.
Yes.
You've got to be able to say, okay, you want a deal? This is the deal. Boom. Here's the money.
Right.
You've got to be liquid. You've got to be hands-on. And you've got to be able to get on a plane if you want to come and look at it.
Yes.
Within 24 hours, because these bargains are done in 24 hours.
Okay. So it's very quick.
It's quick.
It all happens very quickly.
It's quick. So as an investor, not everybody is capable, because first of all, an investor in most cases has got his money tied up.
Yes.
Okay, so you've got to be liquid, or at least you've got to know what time span you can use for the liquid.
Right.
Another thing, an advantage of plan is the fact that if you've gone in early, you can make changes.
Okay.
At minimal costs.
Yes.
Whereas in a resale, this is what it is. Whatever you don't like over here, you got to.
She puts in. You got to do
you got to fork out the money.
Right.
Whatever renovation you do, you're going to have to fork it out.
Got you.
Okay, so that's another advantage. But what's an advantage of buying a resale? If you're buying it as an investment, there are very many opportunities where you can buy with a tenant.
Right.
So before you've done anything, you pay the amount. From day one, you're getting an income.
So I was going to say, if you buy a property, an existing property, and you know you can put in a tenant straight away, you've already got somebody who's paying off your bond for you immediately, as opposed to that investment, that
Yes.
development.
Yes.
So let me ask you. So I'm sitting overseas. Can I, as a foreigner, now you've told me I can buy a property. Can I get a bank loan in Israel?
Yes.
And is it different for a person living in Israel?
The answer is yes on both.
Okay.
Okay. Different, not in the process,
Okay.
but in the amount. As a foreigner, you can get up to 50%.
So that's the max, is 50%.
50%.
Okay.
It's not, because there's a way around that one as well.
Okay.
So if you already own a property,
Yes.
and you want to buy a second property, you can utilize one. You can use 50% of the one property and 40% of the other property.
Okay.
So in actual fact, you're getting 90% loan on your second property.
Okay.
You can't get more than 90%. Even if...
But let's say it's my first property. Technically, the
first
max
property,
is 50%.
50% for a foreigner,
Right.
and 80%. It can get you up to 80, 75. It can be pushed maybe to 80% for an Israeli.
Okay. So now...
And bond rates are the same, basically, by the way.
Okay.
Bond rates are the same. In other words, whether you're a foreigner or an Israeli, the bond rates are the same.
And the process is the same, that they use the same calculation for determining
Same process,
the granting of the mortgage.
Same process.
I think we've spoken before, where it's up to a third of your joint with you if you've got a spouse.
Correct.
It can't exceed a third of your
mortgage,
of your income,
of your net income.
Of your net income.
Net income.
Okay.
Correct. But it can also, but that third, your income, can be taken from your country of source. In other words, where you're living, where you're earning, what you're earning, how you're earning, and the amount that you're earning.
Okay. So I can buy the property. Now, what I would have to then, I can get a bond from an Israeli bank, whichever bank it may be, and I have to open a bank account with that bank. They will open an account for me, and I have to...
Not they will, the lawyer. Your lawyer will do all that for you.
So my lawyer, whether it's my appointed lawyer or a lawyer that I found through the agent?
It's your appointed lawyer, whether it's still... Whoever it is, if it's found through the agent, whoever it is, you're going to appoint the lawyer.
But you as the agent, say, if you had a lawyer, you would open a bank account for me.
Yes.
And I would, as a foreigner, I can have that bank account.
Yes.
There in Israel.
Yes.
And I will then be able to send money into the country.
Correct. So what would happen, you would open a trust account.
Okay.
Okay, the formalities of it, your lawyer would open a trust account.
Okay, in your name.
In your name. Okay. Today, the trust accounts where those hidden foreign trust names don't exist anymore. Today, there has to be a beneficiary for every trust account. So the lawyer will open up a trust account. It's in her name, but you are the registered beneficiary. Only you can transfer money to that account. That trust account has been set up for a purpose which is predefined, to buy a property. So you will now send money into the trust account. Is
there a certain amount I have to send, or do I send a monthly amount? Is there an amount that has to sit in that trust account?
It depends. Some banks do demand money that will be, but as soon as you're buying on a property, when you're buying a property, the trust account's not in your account. It's going to be in the lawyer's account. So the banks want the lawyers. They want the lawyers to open trust accounts because they know there's money coming in, and it suits the bank that money's in, because there's currency conversions and things like that. So trust me, I'm not crying for the banks. Okay, so but you've got an account, a trust account in the bank, but that trust account can only be used as per what has been described as what is the purpose of the trust account. The trust account was opened, the purpose to buy an apartment on David HaMelech. So you can't put money into that account and tell your lawyer, listen, I'm coming on holiday, pay the Carlton Hotel for me.
So I can't come and draw money out of I can't come to Israel and draw money out the ATM.
If you want to go, if that money is going to furnish the apartment, that's fine. It's only... That money can only be used for that apartment.
Got it. So let me ask you, so now, whether it's through an agent or any other way. I find the property, I get my mortgage, I decide that I'm going to buy it. The price is X, 1.5 million shekel, 2 million shekel, whatever it may be. Are there any other costs, hidden costs, any other costs that I should be aware of that are going to come on top of that purchase? For example, we've spoken about
purchase tax,
which is your purchase tax.
Purchase tax. Okay, so all
payments for kablanim, payments for
all right. So all your expenses are as follows. You're going to have purchase tax. You're going to have agent's brokerage fee. You're going to have your lawyer's fee.
Got you.
Now, when you're buying from a developer,
yes,
you're going to have a registration fee for the developer's lawyer.
So that only applies to buying off plan.
That only applies.
Not buying a resale.
When you're buying a resale, you don't have anything to do with the developer. The registration fees. Your lawyer will make sure that all the registration takes place according to the Israeli law.
So basically, there's one less expenditure when you're buying resale as opposed to
correct. The other expense that you do have, which was not an expense, but I like to mention it so that there's no hidden cost, is I would call it a general. It's not much, between 2,500 to 3,000 shekels.
Yes.
It's something that I like to put in so that the buyer, the foreign buyer, doesn't come with a supply as well. Hang on a second, why am I paying for a courier service to have? Because that's part of it. There's a courier that has to take, a courier service has to take the documents from one place to another, get them signed and bring them back, to have the caution note done, to wait at the deeds office. There's 1,000,001 things over there. Yeah. There's bank fees, backwards and forth. All these things go towards, these are the little things that at the end they add up, they can reach 2,500 to 3,000 shekels.
Okay, so I'm buying a 2 million shekel property, but really I'm not going to be paying 2 million shekel. Let's say, for example, what are we talking about in terms of those extra?
So purchase tax has actually changed now.
Okay,
it's come down. It's 5%. I can't remember the exact amount. I think it's up to about, I can't remember, I don't want to mention, but it's the 5%, and then you have another 6% up 5% up to I think 1.6 million shekels,
okay,
and then 6% up to 3 million or 3.2 million shekels,
okay,
something like that. I don't want to, it's something like that.
Is the purchase tax different for a foreign person as opposed to somebody an Israeli who buys here in Israel?
Correct. There is a difference, but there's a perk.
Okay.
So the perk for the Israeli is that if he's a first-time buyer,
yes,
he gets up until about 1,500 shekels or 1,800 shekels is exempt.
Okay.
So the first period is exempt. A foreigner it's understood that he owns a property, it's taken for granted is the correct word, that he owns a property abroad.
Okay.
So therefore when he comes to Israel, he's a second-time buyer.
Okay.
So if you're a second-time buyer, then you will pay the 5% and then up to the certain level, and then 6% after that, 8 further, 10, and it goes up to 10% when you reach I think it's about the 6 million or something like that.
Got you.
Okay, so those are the brackets for the purchase tax. Regarding agency fees, the agency fees are about 2% across the board.
Yes.
So you're actually off on a ballpark figure. You're probably adding, I would say, and a lawyer's fees is approximately 1%.
Okay.
So I would say on your price of your apartment, you can add on, let's say, between 8 and 10%.
Okay. So those are all the other things that you should expect to come up when you buy a property.
Correct. On a 2 million shekel apartment, for argument's sake, on a 2 million shekel apartment, you can look at about 200,000 shekels of extras.
Okay, that's great. That's important to know, because a lot of people think I'm buying a 2 million shekel place and they don't budget for the...
Correct. 100%.
And they have to know that they have to budget for the extra.
So what we do when we deal with a client, we send out a spreadsheet with all the details of the property and all the expenses, and if we're buying from a developer, I'll even put in the payment schedule.
Yes.
As to what the payment schedule is, what it's going to be, And if they're taking a bond, we'll work out for them what the bond repayment is, what the conservative rent is of that particular apartment, so that the potential buyer will know exactly what he's in for and what his turnkey basically will be when the apartment's ready.
Okay. So now, in terms of that, so we've covered the process in terms of I've now got approval. I've found a bank with a mortgage. I've obviously found my property prior to that. I've got my bond approval. I now buy the property. Where else do you go in the process? What is the next step? So now let's say I buy a resale. I now buy the property. My mortgage is approved. I can now put a tenant in there, correct?
Okay. So
now, how does that tenant pay me?
All right. So
if
now,
I don't have a bank account.
Okay. So first of all, no. So if you have a bank account, first of all, the money can go into the trust account.
So you can pay from rent into that trust account?
Into the trust account. What most lawyers normally do once the apartment's completed and finished,
yes,
the trust account's a headache for them.
Okay.
Trust me.
Yes.
So they basically, as soon as the apartment's finished, if there's any money in the account, they say to you, listen, I would like you to open, and you can, no problem.
Yes.
You open an account in your own name.
Like just a normal bank account?
Straight normal bank account.
It's easy as a foreigner to open a bank account?
Easy as that,
okay.
Simple. Going into the bank, filling in the forms, bum, bum, bum.
Okay.
Okay, that's the one option. The other option, which we give our clients as for the investors who are living abroad, we offer a management service.
Okay.
So we're actually one of the few real estate companies that actually have a trust account, which is a trust account, which is a client's account.
Okay.
So we can collect the rent, and we put the rent into the trust account. We manage the apartment, we manage all the collecting and everything.
Yes.
And then once a year, rent in Israel is taxable up to a certain threshold.
Okay.
5,800 shekels, if I'm not mistaken.
If somebody's renting from me, I have to pay tax on that
on the
rental that I'm earning.
Yeah. So there are two ways of doing it, which we do. One way of doing working out your tax is we do it through an audit.
Okay.
Where through an audit, 90% of the time, you're not going to pay it because there's depreciation. There's a formula which is done through the income tax.
Yes.
But that can, because you're a foreigner, it can only be done through a chartered accountant.
Yes.
So there's an audit that has to be done. When someone does it through us, an audit like that costs 2,000 shekels plus VAT.
Okay.
But the alternative is to pay 10%. So if you're earning 5,800 shekels, let's call it 6,000 shekels just to make it easy.
Yes.
That's 72,000 shekels a year. You're going to pay tax.
Yes.
On 7,000, you're going to pay tax of 7,000,
okay.
10%. 7,200 shekels, no questions asked.
Okay.
Whereas if you do an audit, we take all the expenses that have been on the apartment,
yes,
including brokerage fee.
Right, so you can take that off.
That all gets deducted.
Got you.
And then you're going to show that you've actually lost money on the apartment. So if you've lost money on the apartment, you don't pay tax.
So it's almost like running a business in some ways. If I can show that I've made a loss.
Not like, it is.
It's like it's running a business.
Not like, it is.
So if I've lost money in my business, I get
100%.
Okay, got you.
So at the end of the year, we give you an option. We do a pre-audit.
Yes.
We have a look. I see all the figures. You see what it is. If it works out in your favor,
yes,
to pay 2,000 shekels, because sometimes you can pay the 2,000 shekels and pay 25. Because on that you're going to pay 25% tax on the profit.
Right.
But your 25% tax could still work out less than paying. In other words, 2,000 shekels
yes,
audit fees.
You got to do this slow now.
2,000 shekels audit fees.
Okay.
Plus your 25% on your profit on the rent.
Right.
Could still work out less than paying a 10% off the flat rate.
Understand. Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
An expensive apartment that's renting out at 8 or 10,000 shekels per month, it could work out cheaper.
Right.
To do an audit and. You understand?
I understand.
So we do that, and we'll come to you and we'll say to you, listen, it's cheaper to do the audit, but I can't do the audit.
Yes.
I'm not because you're a foreigner. It's got to be done through a chartered accountant.
Okay.
So the guy that we deal with, because we have not 1, 2, or 50 or 10, we have a number of years. So he does it at a special rate for us.
Got you. So now, okay, let's say here's a slightly different question, maybe just more around pricing and stuff like that. Let's say I'm not buying. I'm buying with a view to making Aliyah. So I'm not buying as an investment, you know, I'm not buying because I want, you know, a holiday home. I'm not buying because in 20 years time I'm going to retire to Israel and I want to have something there and earn some money in the meantime from rental. I'm definitely going to make Aliyah. Would you recommend I buy as a foreigner and come, or would you recommend I come first? Because obviously, as we've spoken before, as an Ole, I get certain benefits when I buy a property in Israel. So is it, if I know for sure I'm coming in a certain time, is it better for me to say to you, I'm coming, can you start looking for properties and I'm going to buy when I get there? Or is it better to buy beforehand?
All right, so my first question is going to be, when are you intending to make Aliyah?
Let's say, okay, so we're planning now, we're going to come in a year's time.
Yeah, okay, a year's not a problem.
And I'm going to buy an existing property and we're going to be there. Okay, we're packing up the house, we're coming in.
That's another reason to think about, should I buy a resale or a new development?
Right.
And I'll explain why as well. Because when you're buying a resale, from when you've signed the contract,
yes,
until you actually make Aliyah, you have, sorry, let's put it this way. From the date of signing the contract, you have a year to make Aliyah,
okay,
in order to get the tax benefits.
So it's a year is the time cutoff?
Yes, it's a year from the date that you bought the apartment,
okay,
signed the contract,
okay,
and made Aliyah is a year.
Okay.
From a development.
So you've got a year's grace to benefit from that.
Correct.
Okay.
Now if you're buying off a development,
yes,
from a development, you've got a year from occupation. So I've bought the property today on pre-sale. Occupation is going to be in 3 years' time.
So it's only once it's ready to be lived in.
Only once it's ready to, exactly. In a resale, it's only from occupation,
yes,
a year from occupation.
Got you.
So you've got the year from occupation plus the time until the apartment's ready. That could be 2 years, 3 years. That's why I asked you, when are you thinking of making Aliyah?
So if I was buying off plan, I could then, I say, well, I'm going to make Aliyah at some point in time. I then monitor the developer and he says, no, it's going to be ready for occupation in 6 months' time or in a year's time. Then I can start to make my plans for Aliyah.
Correct. But you'll know that from day one. You'll know that from day one.
Okay.
You'll know day one that you're buying an apartment today. You're buying an apartment off plan.
Yes.
Your expected occupation is going to be in 2 years or 3 years or 18 months or whatever it is.
And as you've mentioned before, the developer has a 3 month.
Developer has a 3 month grace.
Grace.
Because of whatever.
So it could be when I sign on that development, if the date is 3 years, it could be 3 years and 3 months max.
Correct.
Okay. Gotcha.
Correct. And if it's not the 3 months, part of the contract will have a compensation, which is normally 1.5 months rent,
right,
from where you've actually, from the apartment that you're going to rent, that is going to be yours. Got it.
So if I'm, as I said in the beginning, if I'm then buying that property as a view to making Aliyah sometime, I have a date in my mind, I should do it within that 1 year time limit, because then I benefit from the Ole rights that I get.
Correct. That's why I said before, my first question to you would be, when are you expecting to make Aliyah?
Got it.
And that was what I said earlier, when you're speaking the things, when a realtor asks you questions, he's actually not trying to find out he's not trying to get into your life to find out all about you. These are important things that can give the realtor information to find the best deal for you. Now, I'm just telling you, for example, something like that, the purchase tax could be a difference of close to 100,000 shekels.
Right. Got you.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you're converting it to rands, it's definitely a lot of money.
Right. Absolutely. So, Selwyn, thanks so much for coming in. Before we go,
it's my pleasure.
Is there anything else that you think is important for the foreign investor or the foreign buyer to know or understand? when they're buying a property in Israel that maybe we haven't discussed or covered?
I honestly believe it, that every Jew around the world should own a property in Israel. And I know every Jew wants to own a property in Israel.
Some just can't afford it.
I know they want to. But the longer you wait,
right,
the more expensive it's going to be.
Okay, so here's the $1 million question. Where's the best place to buy property in Israel?
There isn't anywhere.
Yeah.
It's the budget. You tell me what you've got, and according to, and again, I'm going back to your needs,
Yes.
as we spoke about earlier,
Yes.
is what are your needs?
Right.
According to your needs and your budget, will find everything, the exact thing that suits you. There's not, look, if you're going to say to me, I've got $1 million shekels and I want to live at the Kotel, well, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But I'll tell you that's not going to happen.
I want to live on the beach in Herzliya.
I'm going to tell you that's not going to happen.
Right.
Or maybe you can rent a machzan, you can rent a storeroom. That
Right.
could happen.
Yes.
But I'll tell you straight out what is feasible and what's not feasible.
Okay.
Come with a property, you come with a budget, we'll discuss it. We'll see, okay, there's a budget. Your budget may not be good enough
Yes.
to live where you want to live.
Yes.
You want to be close to the sea. Okay, but if we go one neighborhood slightly further back from the sea,
Right.
the price is a different price. The price is different, and maybe what are the options about maybe taking a bond? If you're buying as an investment, or you want to rent it out until you come here, these are things that we can help you with.
Right.
And again, I keep hearing it time over and over again. Why didn't I listen to you? Why didn't I buy then? Why didn't I? Why didn't I? Guys, this is the time for everybody to have property in Israel.
Okay. Selwyn, thank you so much for coming in. It was very informative. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to let people know that buying property in Israel is not a headache.
Great. Thank you, Selwyn.
Thank you.